What's up? My name's Adam. I'm a co-founder here at KitPrint. And today I'm going to quickly show you how we can tackle all your technical packaging and label file work, as well as all your quick turn retail and wholesale assets, all for about half the cost of a full-time designer with the 3 business day turnaround guarantee. So like I said, my name's Adam. I'm a co-founder here at KitPrint. We are a production design team with a bit of a twist that I'll touch on here shortly. We exclusively focus on CPG. About 50% of our client base is traditional CPG, primarily food and beverage, working with brands like Egg Life, Red's All Natural, Wandering Bear Coffee. The other 50% is primarily made up of some of the largest cannabis operators, including brands like Uncle Arnie's, AeroPro, and Revolution. I personally have been in CPG about a decade and was previously a co-founder of what was at one time one of the largest cannabis operators in the California market, which is where I met Meredith, the other co-founder of KitPrint. Meredith brings more than a decade of production design and print production experience to the table, and our team is comprised of a growing number of production designers and support staff. And so we partner with marketing leaders at CPG brands just like yourself to deliver quick turnarounds of production-ready packaging and label files and all those quick turn sales and marketing assets that typically need to be turned around yesterday. So what are we going to be talking about today? I'm going to go over how we define production design, what we do, and almost more importantly, what we don't do, what we need from you to enable quick turnarounds and to minimize rounds of revision, some examples of our work, the most common challenges that our clients had before engaging us, how our model works, how our pricing works, the team, the workflow, output expectations in terms of what you can expect from us, what onboarding looks like, and then what next steps look like after you watch this call. So let's just jump right in here. If you're tired of battling constant last-minute requests for retailer-specific packaging iterations, renders and assets that need dozens of different sizes and formats, files with layers that just aren't set up correctly, a sales team that needs assets yesterday, and a creative team that just can't find the time to focus on that higher impact creative work that really moves the needle, this offer is for you. And it's all without having to make any long-term commitments. So with us, there's no contracts. Everything is month to month. You can pause or cancel anytime, which means you can try us out for a month without any long-term commitments. So first off, let's get aligned on what production design actually is. So as odd as this may initially sound, let's consider a sandwich. So to make a ready-to-eat sandwich, one has to pull together all the necessary ingredients to create a finished product. So let's look at this in the context of rolling out a batch of new SKUs across an existing product line. So we take your brand guidelines and core assets, the die line, the copy, the existing files to work off of, compliance requirements like warning language, symbology, FDA info, print specs, and then any operational considerations pertaining to label application, packing, etc. And then we combine all those different ingredients to create production and print-ready files, as well as high-quality digital renders if desired. Now, obviously, some jobs and assets can be a little less complicated than this. For example, a static social asset or a web banner, but you get the picture here. So we talked about what production design is, so now let's talk about what production design isn't. We always like to spend time here because it really helps make things clear in terms of what we do versus what we don't do. The line between production design and conceptual creative design is really less of a line, and it's more like a Venn diagram. So here's a breakdown of what we do, and I'll walk through some specific examples here in a minute, but at a high level, about 50% of what we do is packaging related, 50% is a broad category that we define as quick turn sales and marketing assets. On the other side, here's a breakdown of what we don't do. The 2 main things to call out are web design and brand development. Web development, while we execute all kinds of static digital assets like web banners, etc., we just don't build full landing pages and websites. Now, brand development is probably the most important one to touch on here. We are not a creative agency. It's going to kind of come in and build a brand identity, brand story, or big brand campaign concept from scratch. We are essentially leveraging your existing brand guide, some of those core assets to do a lot of the stuff that I touched on previously in the what we do section. That being said, brand development is where the production design versus conceptual creative design Venn diagram primarily comes into play here. For example, if you have an historical packaging look that you're just looking to make some creative adjustments and tweaks to versus a completely new rebrand, this is a situation we'll take your existing look and some detailed input from you in terms of what changes you're envisioning, and then we'll come back with a few concepts for you to evaluate and choose from. And then from there, we'll finalize the new look and then apply it to all the relevant SKUs using the dial-in that you provide. So as you can see, this is a scenario where we're doing some level of creative conceptual work just up to a point. So In terms of what we need from you to enable quick turnarounds and to minimize rounds of revision, to get a job done effectively, we just need a good amount of detail from you. So here's an example of what a well-defined brief generally looks like compared to a brief that's lacking enough detail to effectively execute a job. So let's look at some examples of our work. As I mentioned, about 50% of what we do is packaging related, which we generally break up into 3 areas. So the first being layout. So this is, applying new layouts and new SKUs, new flavors, any packaging updates going on, looking at both primary and secondary packaging, taking static and variable label components into account, and then really optimizing for printing capabilities and equipment and operational capabilities. And then the second kind of category is point of sale. So this mainly means, displays, whether it's end caps, wire rack displays, that kind of stuff, shelf talkers, aisle violators, that kind of stuff. And then the third bucket is renders. So this really means, high quality, realistic renders in multiple sizes and formats for all those various use cases, like your website, Syndigo, which we are working with constantly. So that's the packaging bucket. And then the other bucket is essentially quick turn sales and marketing assets. So what this looks like is basically, sales decks, sales sheets and one-pagers, trade show materials, email layouts. Essentially, you provide us a few past examples plus some desired copy, the assets to use, the call to action, and then we deliver, ready-to-use assets to drop into Klaviyo or whatever platform they're using, as well as all the other typical wholesale and retail assets to basically, support sell-in and sell-through, essentially. So let's look at the most common challenges that most of our clients had before engaging us. I'd say the large majority of our clients initially engaged us for one of 2 pretty common reasons. So one, they had a creative designer or designer that were just getting bogged down with a lot of this technical production design work and or a lot of quick turn sales and marketing assets, just to the point where they weren't able to spend enough time on some of that higher impact creative work. Turnaround times kept getting longer and deadlines kept getting missed. The other scenario typically applies to earlier stage up and coming brands where they've got an existing brand guide or some core brand assets that we can leverage to get a lot done, but they just can't really afford or justify the cost of a full-time in-house designer, just need to kind of figure out how to get more done with less. So let's take a look at our model and how it's structured to address some of these common challenges. So we offer all-you-can-eat production design. We tackle as many projects as we can get done in a month, working on one at a time, turning files around in 3 business days or less for a flat monthly investment that we typically find to be, again, about 50% of the cost of the average full-time designer. And there's no contracts, it's all month to month, so you only use us when you need us, not when you don't. You can pause or cancel any time. So let's just say you got a bunch of work that needs to get done over a few months and then things slow down for a month or 2. You can just put us on pause and come back again a month or 2 later when the needs pick up again. And so by having the ability to pause or cancel any time, this also means you can try us out for a month without any long-term commitments. So by now, it's probably pretty clear that with our model, our pricing is pretty simple, and it is. The price is $28.95 a month. As mentioned, we typically find this to be roughly half the cost of the average full-time designer. As a reminder, again, our model is month to month, unless you want to pay for a quarter year up front, so you can pause or cancel anytime. Now, one thing that's important to make clear is that we're not just farming out work to a bunch of junior designers with minimal oversight. Our goal is not to have a huge client base. Our goal is really to focus on operators that we can build long-term partnerships with, which means we have to provide top flight service on a continuous basis. And so what this means in practice is that our team has at least 5 to 10 years of production design experience and is directly led by my partner and co-founder Meredith, who oversees all design requests to ensure every job is executed to spec. So let's talk about the workflow and how the unlimited jobs one at a time actually works in practice. So our 2 main goals really are 1, to keep things as simple as possible, and 2, to minimize the time you need to spend creating jobs and providing feedback. So what we found works best is a really easy to use Trello board, which looks like this. And so how it works essentially is when you click into the Start Here card, you will see a detailed overview of what we need from you to execute a job effectively. To create a job, you'll add a card to the queue column, fill out the card with all the necessary info, as well as upload or link to the relevant assets. We're not looking for a super in-depth agency brief here that takes you a long time to fill out. We just need enough detail to get the job done. Again, the goal is to save you time and keep things simple. So you can add bullets, and not complete sentences. You can even upload napkin drawings, as some of our clients do. Whatever is easiest for you to get the necessary info on the card. And then our team will review each card to ensure we have everything we need to get the job done. And even if we don't, we'll let you know what else we need ASAP. And then you can add as many jobs as you like to the queue. To indicate what job you want us to work on first, you'll move the corresponding card into the active request column. And if you forget to do so, we're going to assume the job at the top of the queue is the most urgent, and we'll move it over for you unless you tell us otherwise. And then as soon as, I'm just going to scroll down a little bit here so you can see the board again. So as soon as we're done with the job or that round of revision, we immediately move it into the pending approval column and tag you so you immediately get a notification. And then from there, you'll go in and review the work, review the work done by our team, and either approve the job and move it into the complete column, and or add feedback directly in the card so we can make the necessary tweaks. So now let's just assume it takes you 24 hours to submit feedback, and if you've got multiple projects in the queue. As soon as you move a project into the pending approval column, we immediately start working on the next one while we wait for your feedback on that previous job. So once you get feedback on a job and pending approval, we immediately jump back to that job so we can push it over the finish line for you, and then you can use those assets in whatever applicable use case that you're going to use those for. So as you can see, assuming there are multiple jobs in the queue, we're always working on something. It's essentially the equivalent of having one full-time production designer. Now, lastly, we can certainly customize your Trello board to conform to your workflow. And as an example, if you have someone in your team that is in charge of compliance checks, we can add a compliance column. So whenever a job that gets moved into that column, that compliance person gets pinged and they can know to jump into the board and complete their review. And then finally, we also can set up a Slack channel, unless you're not interested in this, to have another channel for quick and dirty comms outside of the Trello board and the cards, just to have a place for you to ring the alarm bell if a super urgent request comes in that you need it to jump on immediately outside of the normal Trello job queue. If you don't like Slack, email, phone, text is totally fine too. Okay, so at this point in the video, you may be wondering, how many projects can KitPrint actually execute in a given month with their unlimited projects, one at a time model? And it's a great question. And the answer is it depends. So let's consider two real examples that cover two ends of the spectrum. So we've got a client in the beverage aisle for whom we handle a wide variety of jobs. Many of these jobs are small tweaks to files or quick assets. And so for this client, there's many months where we're completing 10 to 15 jobs per day. On the other side, another example number two, we've got a client in the frozen aisle who we handle mainly larger projects, such as creating new label layouts and then applying this look across 10 to 20 different SKUs. And we typically batch these kind of jobs together as one project, even though we look to deliver portions of these projects in stages, so you don't have to wait for the entire batch to be done before you get your hands on some of the assets. But for this type of client, we often complete 5 to 10 projects per month. So ultimately, the number of projects we can get done for you in a given month will really depend on the types of jobs you send our way. Okay, so let's talk about onboarding. So similar to the workflow, we strive to keep things as simple as possible so we can jump into your first batch of jobs as soon as possible. So once you say let's go, we schedule an onboarding call that can usually be as soon as the next day after our initial call. Before the onboarding call, you'll receive an email from us with a Stripe payment link to get your membership set up, and then a link to your Trello board. And then on the day of your onboarding call, before the call starts, you'll complete that Stripe payment for your first month. Again, you're only paying for your first month, and then you can cancel it for some reason, like how things are going. And then on the onboarding call, which usually takes about 45 minutes, we'll basically walk through your brand guide and any core brand assets, just to make sure we understand if there are any specific ways you want us to use certain assets in certain use cases. We'll ensure we get access to all your relevant files and assets, at least the ones we'll need for the first few jobs. We'll get aligned on file sharing processes and file naming conventions so we can keep things super organized and files are going back and forth. We'll walk through the Trello board workflow and even get the first project teed up together just so we can make sure we can get started right away. And then as soon as we get off the onboarding call, we're pretty much getting started on that first project right away. So that's onboarding. So if KitPrint sounds like it could be a good fit and you'd like to jump on a call to get some more info, all you need to do is click the button below to fill out a quick form. And then once you get that filled out, you'll be directed to a calendar link to book a call. And so on that call, we'll cover the following. We'll cover what we already know about your brand. We always like to do some research beforehand, and then you can just fill in the gaps for us. We'll touch on your priorities and pain points, processes that are relevant to the conversation. We'll give you a bit more of an intro to KitPrint, anything that's kind of unclear that you didn't get from watching this video or some of the other materials we'll send your way. And then we'll kind of talk through, if and how KitPrint can help. And by the end of the call, we should all know if it makes sense to continue the conversation and if it seems like a good fit. Super low pressure. If it doesn't seem like a good fit, we'll definitely let you know. And then if there's anything specific you want to cover on the call, there's a place to call us out when you're booking your call, so we make sure we cover any specific things you really want to touch on. So go ahead, click the button below, fill out the form, book a time. And if you already have, I really look forward to speaking with you. See you soon. Thanks for watching.